Hey guys, what's happening? It's Jim. Hope you're having a good day. I am sitting around here on a Friday night and I'm working on some cool stuff. One of the things I'm thinking about, and it's a question I get all the time, and the question is basically, hey Jim, do I need to buy Aurora HDR or do I need to buy Luminar? Which one's the right one for me? Why should I buy one or why should I buy the other? And to be honest, this is a very personal sort of thing. And it depends on what you do. And there's not a right answer for everybody. So if you came to the video hoping to know exactly what to do for every situation, then there's not really an answer. It depends. For me, it comes down to what do you want to do? The first question I ask is, do you shoot brackets? Do you want to merge photos to HDR and create HDR photos? Then if you do, then to me, the obvious answer is you got to have Aurora HDR. Now, that doesn't mean you don't need Aurora. They're very different products. They work together incredibly well. And you know, the TLDR, like the too long didn't read version of this video is, I think you need them both. So if you just want to skip to the end, get them both and be done and go do something else. But if you want to listen, here's the reason I say that. So if you want to build HDR brackets, or excuse me, if you take brackets and you want to build HDR photos, there's no better product than Aurora HDR. And I think it comes down to what are you comparing it to? If you're looking at Photomatix or HDR Effects Pro, then if you're looking also at Aurora, then how do you know the difference between those? Well, the difference is that Aurora to me is a fully functional product. It can stand on its own without any need for other products. I don't think HDR Effects Pro is that way. Now DxO just bought the Nik collection from Google, so we'll see what happens, but as of now, it's a question mark, right? It's a pretty good product. I used it years ago, but I don't use it anymore and haven't used it ever since I first opened Aurora. And then there's Photomatix, which has historically been kind of the better known of the HDR products, but they're just now on version 6. But the truth is, the current version of Aurora, which is kind of version 3, in my opinion, is way more advanced than version 6 of Photomatix. Photomatix sat on version 5 for several years and didn't advance. Aurora came in and I think blew it away. In Aurora, you got layers, you've got 14 different filters, you've got all kinds of capabilities, built-in noise reduction. I can literally take an HDR photo, build it, merge it, tone map it, add filters, add denoise, export, and be done all in Aurora. It's incredible, and to me, it just blows away any other HDR product out there. So that's if you're using HDR. I think that's the answer. Now, if you're not into HDR and you're only taking single exposures, and you're looking at just one product, then I would say definitely get Luminar. Luminar is incredible. I love it. It's very powerful, and hence my love. Obviously, I love both of these products. But if you're only going to shoot single exposures and edit them, then just get Luminar. Can you edit single exposures in Aurora? Absolutely. I've done that plenty of times, and it works great. You can even tone map them to give them a little bit of that HDR look. But if you're purely a single exposure shooter and have no interest in HDR, I wouldn't even consider Aurora, to be honest. I would just go straight to Luminar. The difference is Luminar has 50 filters. That's a 5 followed by a 0. 50 filters. It's massive. It's crazy. There's so much stuff in it. To me, it's like taking the Lightroom Develop module and putting it on steroids. You have 3 times as many filters as Lightroom does. You have layers, and you have all these additional capabilities that you just don't get in places like Lightroom. So what else is there? There's the new filters, sun rays, there's matte look, there's LUT mapping, there's dodge and burn. You have filter masking in Luminar. Filter masking allows you to take a filter and mask it on a single layer without having to add new layers to create a mask. And so I'll show you this in a minute. I'm going to show you both products. What else is there? It's kind of like taking the layers module from Photoshop, the Lightroom Develop module, and then sticking another a whole bunch of filters on it. So like if you took, layers from Photoshop, the Lightroom Develop module, and let's say Color Effects Pro, and made all that in one product and then made it better, that's kind of what Luminar is like. It's way more capable than those things. And on top of that, it's going to get a DAM or a Digital Asset Manager in 2018. So those of you that are buying Luminar 2018 now are going to get the DAM for free. It's DAM free. That's good stuff. So what that does for you, in my opinion, is it eliminates the need to make these round trips. I used to build, if I'm building an HDR, for example, I would export the photos, I'd stick them in Photomatix, I'd build the base HDR, then I go back to Lightroom, and then I go to Color Effects Pro or somewhere and then make some edits. Then maybe I go to Topaz Adjust to make some edits, and each of these is a round trip, and then I have to go denoise it and then come back, and then I'd export it. I don't have to do that anymore. I can do all of it in Aurora, or worst case, if I want to, I can build the HDR in Aurora and then do whatever adjustments I want there, and then stick it in Luminar and do some final touch-up adjustments. You minimize the round trips, you minimize the amount of time spent processing photos, and although I'm a geek about this stuff and absolutely love to process photos, I don't want to spend all day, every day. It's Friday night and I'm sitting here talking about photos, so I clearly love it, but I don't want to spend all my time editing photos. I want to do other stuff, and so to me, a time saver is a big deal. And so that's kind of it. And so for me, between the two, it comes down to, do you want to tone map images and make HDR stuff, or do you want an incredibly powerful all-in-one solution? That's the difference between Aurora and Luminar. So let me show you this. I've got a 3-set bracket here. This is taken in Canada, and I'm just going to scroll through these 3, right? So these are 3 exposures taken at a moraine lake in Canada, right? Dark, medium, and light, right? So I'm just going to close that. Now I've already merged them, and here they are in Aurora HDR. So the tone mappings occurred. You can see the base image is very natural. Compare that to this. This is the center exposure from the bracket set. There's the tone mapped image. Incredibly natural, and another reason that I think Aurora is better than doing HDR in HDR Effects Pro or in Photomatix or even in Lightroom or Photoshop or somewhere. Incredibly natural results. One more time, before and after. Now I haven't done anything, but if I wanted to, I could come in here, I could make, Hdr Enhance, which is sort of like a smart clarity filter. I can increase the contrast, I could warm it up, I could take shadows down and highlights up. It doesn't matter. You can do all kinds of things. Maybe I want to cool it off a little bit more than that. Maybe I want to increase the tint a little bit. I can come in here and bump up the saturation and the vibrance if I want to, change the color contrast, and you can see I'm very quickly getting to a very attractive photo. Top and bottom tuning. I can come in here in the bottom and say it's a little too dark. I want to bump that up a little bit, brighten that section of the photo, and all of a sudden in, I don't know, what was that, 20 seconds or something, I went from, again, that's not the base HDR, that's the center exposure, but I went from that to that. Very powerful. And oh, by the way, I want to add denoise. Sure, I can just stick that on right there. So it's a filter. And to me, that's the power of Aurora HDR. All this capability, make incredible photos in a limited amount of time, which I'm a fan of, and do it all in one product. So that's that. But if you're just a single exposure person, this is the center exposure from the bracket set, right? Before and after, no change. That's the same center exposure that you saw in the last photo. But here I am in Luminar. So over here I can just say, well, I just want to add some photos. So maybe I want to bump up a few things, and let's just see what I do. And by the way, I'm just kind of riffing here. I don't have a plan on these photos. But maybe I come in here and just say, I want to bump up the saturation and vibrance, maybe add a little contrast, change the smart tone. Maybe I need to get color temperature and bump that up a little bit to give it a little bit of warmth. And, pretty soon I've got a pretty incredible photo. And by the way, it's a little dark on the bottom, so let me get the adjustable gradient. I'm going to stick this here. I'm going to lift the exposure in the bottom. And by the way, a little too green in some of the trees, so I'm going to stick HSL on here, and I'm going to go to the green saturation. I'm going to take that down a little bit, and maybe I'll change the luminance as well to darken it a little bit. And there you go. I went from that base photo, no edits, to that, edited photo in really no time at all. That was maybe 20 or 30 seconds. By the way, I have denoise just like I do in Aurora HDR. So denoise is right here. And the cool thing is you have filter masking. I talked about that. So I can bump up the denoise. I say I want to smooth out the sky and the water, and I can filter mask this. So I click on the filter and the brush, and you'll see the filter is highlighted. I'm in paint. I can just paint this edit straight in to the photo without adding a new layer. Now I do have layers, and if I want to get crazy, and I'm just kind of painting this noise reduction, and I'm doing a really sloppy job, so I apologize, but I'm just painting that into the sky and the water. And here's my mask. Well, I didn't click that, did I? Here's my mask, right? Sloppy job. It's terrible. I realize that. I'm not going to pretend I did a good job, and you don't have to pretend that, you don't have to be nice about the fact that I did a sloppy job. So there it is. I just stuck a denoise, and I clicked done because I'm done. But I just selectively applied denoise on the photo without adding a new layer, without going to another product. Super powerful, super easy, and super capable. So that's what Luminar is. If you want to look at the filter list, here it is, right? There's 50 filters, 50. So that's a big deal. And so to me, it comes down to, do you want a single exposure, and are you going to take single exposures and want to edit those? And do you want great results? Luminar is the answer. If you're looking at adding tone mapping and being able to create HDRs from bracketed photos, Aurora HDR is the answer. So base photo, HDR photo, right? Back to Luminar. Base photo, edited photo in Luminar. Different edits because I wasn't trying to do them the same. I'm just showing you some of the variety and some of the capability of these two products. So Jim, what's the answer? I have no idea whatsoever. It depends on what you want to do. If you're into HDR and that's your thing, get Aurora HDR. If you could care less and all you want to do is edit single exposures, get Luminar. Me, personally, I think you need both. I said that earlier, I'll say it again. They're great products, they're very complementary to each other, and they're wonderful to have. Sometimes I'll take a single exposure, even though I could go into Luminar, and I'll stick it in Aurora instead. And maybe I'll tone map that and give it a little bit of a grungy HDR look. Sometimes I'll take HDRs that I build in Aurora HDR and I'll stick them in Luminar to take advantage of the 50 different filters that Luminar offers. And so that's the difference. Is it comes down to HDR or not at the very basic level, but then there's sort of, toppings on each of those that differentiate the two products. It makes it hard to choose. I'm not going to choose because I like them both and I use them both. If you have to choose, it comes down, in my opinion, to HDR or not. If you're a single exposure only, it's Luminar. If you're into HDR, start with Aurora. But I personally think you can use both. You benefit from both. And having the two of them cost one time, once a year you buy an upgrade or whatever, you'll spend $140 or something like that to get the two of them. And to buy the upgrades each year, they're going to be cheaper than that. In my opinion, it's cheaper to buy the two of them than it is to go buy the Lightroom and Photoshop deal from Adobe for, $10 a month. So that's $120 a year. So the first year you might pay a little bit more to get Luminar and Aurora, but you have an incredible amount of capability at your hands without all the complexity of Photoshop and frankly Lightroom. When I first started using Lightroom, I was kind of like scratching my head saying, what the hell is that? I don't even know how to use it. And I'm a fairly advanced user of a lot of these things. But it's kind of confusing. But Photoshop, forget it. I mean, that's crazy. So if you don't want to learn that stuff, skip it. Get these two and end up saving money over time and having more capability. And frankly, I think a lot more fun. So thanks for sticking around and listening. That's my little rant or whatever you call it. I'm not ranting because I'm not like fired up. I'm just talking about it. People ask this question all the time. I don't know how to answer the question. So I did a video. It seems easier. I hope I haven't rambled too much. I'm going to go to bed. Have a good night. Have a good day, wherever it is, whatever time it is. I have no idea. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, please give me a like. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your opinion on these kind of things. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button. Share with your friends. Help me out. I appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back as soon as I can with more videos. Thank you, my friends. Have a great one. Talk to you later, and adios.